Welcome back. It's Lock, Stock, and 2 freaking picks. He's the coach, Mark Lieberman. I'm Phil Baker. Give him a follow on Twitter /X. Coach Mark Lieberman, correct?
Correct.
I am Phil _ Baker. Maybe one day Elon Musk will give me back my rightful username and get rid of those double underscores. But for the time being, I am double underscore.
And if it's not correct, it'll be on the bottom of the screen thanks to our wonderful producer, Justin. He'll handle all that.
Plug your Twitter on there while you're at it right there. Mm-hmm. We're excited to be back. If you're new to this, what we're doing, it's ESPN Louisville Plus. We're going to give you additional content, the notes, the sights and sounds from the week that was. Coach Mark Lieberman's going to be breaking down everything. It is a glorious day in the Bluegrass, boys and girls. For those that are scoring at home, it's September 28th. I have been telling you about this shady spot on River Road that pings off a cell phone tower in Indiana for a decade. We have sports gambling.
We do. Round of applause.
And our lines are provided by our great friends over at...
I'll tell you this. Live betting, same game parlays, all with our partners at...
We're so excited that sports gambling is here. It is a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm going to do a 3-team parlay that I'm going to lose all three, the entire bet on, but I'm perfectly content with it. That's what happens when you're dealing with me. But I don't have to go across the 2nd Street Bridge, sit in a shady parking lot and get side-eyed by Jeffersonville PD. So there you go with that. Got a ton of things to get into. It's show and tell day. We got to give a ton of shout outs. It's essentially all these people brought us great things, and we got our friends over at Coors Light bringing us swag. Shout out to Andrew Bosch, Justin Soforo, Tanner, James Black for helping build all this stuff out. We got our Sega Genesis games. We got some little Jurassic Park.
That's kind of right out of your basement.
Yeah, that's right out of my basement. My retainer didn't make the display, though, for all my nerddom over there. We got some Coach Mark Lieberman swag. Tell us about some of the stuff you got over there, Coach.
Well, we've got the McDonald's All-American game poster, which I was lucky enough to coach in 2009, and a Final Four picture from 2012 where my eyes are closed, but still a great pick, which is fantastic.
It's framed. It looks beautiful. You look great there. You look like you haven't aged a day.
Personally brought in the Under Armour, the body armor.
Yeah, body armor. We got some body armor drink over there. Thanks to our friends Matt Horlander for bringing that over there as well. And yes, if you can't, we are going to be
one thing you don't see is that we will have a monitor. And one thing that's exciting about what we'll be doing is, compared to some other shows, we won't just be talking about it. We'll be showing it, the whys, why something worked, why something didn't work. We'll be able to break down as we get into basketball season, Louisville basketball, Kentucky basketball, all the different things that go on during the game. We'll have our own version of a telestrator, so super excited about that as well.
Yes, we will have a TV. This is in its infancy. This is everything that was in our garage or storing units outside of our friends at Miller & Coors and Body Armor for bringing all this great swag. But all the other stuff essentially came from his storage unit, my garage, and everything else that we could find around the station. It's in its infancy. Deal with it. All right, next up, a ton of things to get into. We said the show is growing. Subscribe to ESPN Louisville on YouTube. ESPN Louisville Plus, that is. This is that channel. We are going to give you additional content. You hear about all the stuff that happens in the bullpen. Everyone yelling at each other. Bob and Nick yelling at each other during the break. Maybe we'll get a 2-minute montage of that. The coach breaking down the X's and O's of the game against Lenore Rhine. You're going to get that.
You are.
Oh, trust me, coach he's adamant about that. You're going to get me breaking down my top 10 sneakers of all time. Spoiler alert, they're not Adidas, coach.
That's
checks over stripes, baby.
Yeah.
You know, I'm loyal.
I know how you are.
You know how I operate.
And as always, we'll work in some pop culture. We'll work in some of the great shows that you need to watch, some of the shows you need to avoid. It's a cornucopia of information. You can't get anything better than what you're about to view and listen to and watch on our channel.
337 West Cardinal Boulevard if you want to send us free swag. I mean, we're open for business. If you see all the bare space on there, my goal is to have all of that wall filled with any free things that may be in your garage. If you're a business and you want your promotion up here, we'll put that up there too. We're shameless. We have no problem with that. All right. Sports gambling's here. You are thrilled about it. Thanks to our great friends over at
Live Betting, same game parlays, prop bets, everything you can think of with our partners at...
All right, so this is what I want to talk about before we get into the weekend's games, because obviously we're going to talk with the locals, with Louisville and NC State Friday, 7 o'clock, ESPN, Kentucky and Florida. We're going to dive into that as well. But you are a basketball Benny, my friend. I know you love breaking all this down. What are your thoughts about the Louisville non-conference schedule, takeaways from that, predictions on what their record should be after what you saw last year and the talent that they have in now?
Look, they put together a schedule that is conducive for what they want to do for this year. Their non-conference schedule, I think they'll be more prepared. It's a situation where, look, you go to New York, you're going to have some tough games with Texas, either UConn or Indiana. The bottom line is for this year's squad, they need to come out of the gate strong with non-conference before they get into conference play. To put a number on it, we'll get into that. Like I said, we'll be breaking down film from every game. We'll show you certain situations, why it worked, their ball screen coverage, how they did in transition, what's working offensively, what's not. We'll break all that down, and we'll go from there, and we'll see. But they should be able to, Phil, get off to a good start from a standpoint of what they put together schedule-wise.
You would agree this schedule now versus last year, obviously the Maui Invitational is a beast within its own that they had to participate in last year. The Empire Classic, obviously the defending national champion Connecticut being in there, Indiana and Texas also. I would think all the basketball bennies out there predicting decent years for all those teams up there. So there's going to be some challenges, maybe not the behemoth that is the Maui Invitational, but a much easier schedule, dare I say, than what you had last year.
Well, the biggest thing is they could flesh out their team. I think going into last year and as it went through the course of the season, finding that identity, what they want to do well. And for this year, having some returners and being able to talk about, okay, this is what we want to accomplish from the get-go. We want to be a fast team. We want to defend well in the half court. That's what they got to figure out, which throughout the course of the season, it just wasn't there. So when you have games, you're going to begin the season with Simmons College, Kentucky Wesleyan exhibitions. Last year, they lost their exhibition game.
Trust me, Dan Issel let us know.
And then you have 3 home games against UMBC, UT Chattanooga. UT Chattanooga is a decent squad, so that might be a test. And Coppin State, that should be a good start. Then you get into New York. That's where, you might find out, hey, they're going to be put to the metal. Then they get back home, New Mexico State, Bellarmine, and then at Virginia Tech, conference play starts. And then 3 more home games before they play Kentucky. And then it really gets into the meat and potatoes when they get into ACC play. I'm interested to see, you can tell it right from the beginning, what this team is trying to accomplish, what they're going to be about.
I'm excited you're the basketball Benny. I'm a nerd when it comes to the production of it. The CW so far with some of the ACC football games, I heard Double D and Blank talking about this morning. Not a terrible product.
No,
they actually put on outside of the backdrop. And look, who are we to cast aspersions on backdrops when we're working with this back here? But it's in its infancy.
Phil, I don't know what you're talking about. You got Joe Burrow staring at you over
look at those eyes.
Your right shoulder.
I thought it was Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, just staring at me. But it's a talkback boy on that. But anyways,
Joe Burrow or Sam Hartman? Who are you going with?
I mean, Sam Hartman's like the sex symbol on Game of Thrones, who's just like probably the love interest of Khaleesi. But
he's like 27 years old, though. Not that matters. I mean, I think he's older than Joe Burrow.
Speaking of the ACC product that's out there, let's shift a little bit to football.
So under the radar with the records of the ACC teams right now.
Yeah, so Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com, she put this out there. She was on with Bobby V and Nick earlier this week or last week. It's kind of all blended together with the launch of sports gambling. But nonetheless, a conversation that is being had is that the ACC is quietly having a great start in the college football landscape. And that's kind of been the whole thing with the revenue gap. And I'm not going to bore you or make you lose your mind over talking realignment, because obviously there's reports out there from some guy who's eating potato chips in his mom's basement talking about Clemson's flirting with the SEC yet again.
You're going to give me PTSD.
I know how you feel about it, Coach. I know, we're moving on. But what do you think that says? The best start for a conference since the SEC in 2012. And this is without Clemson carrying its weight in the ACC.
It's great, right? But it's a small sample size. We'll see as the season moves on how those records go. It's great to see. But Phil, you'd have to admit it's under the radar. People aren't talking about. They were really just poo-pooing the ACC, and now look at how many squads. You have 6 teams that are have winning records, and it's It's a great sign for the conference. So maybe that's going to lure teams back in. What are your thoughts?
Now, we've had this discussion in the past, and I know our very own Luke Hancock, you have a personal relationship with him. I didn't mean that like you all were an item, but I meant like you have a long-term.
Not like Travis.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that.
We're not Swifties and Travis yet.
Yeah, not yet. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's 2023. But a conversation that I know was discussed this time last year was Jeff Capel of Pittsburgh basketball thought the league needed to do a better job of promoting itself. And I know Luke kind of took that to heart. It says, look, I mean, if you put a better product up there, I'm going to be objective on there, even though it is the ACC network. I know the SEC network and its honks that are out there are always hoisting it up. SEC, it just means more and whatnot. Do you think there is a dynamic with that with the ACC? And I know I asked you that from a basketball standpoint, but I think that correlates to football as well.
Yeah, well, the fact that we're talking about it and that people aren't talking about it, that goes to it. But you look at the SEC, and because of football and because of even just games last week, how many SEC players are making an impact in the NFL? That's their biggest marketing ploy that they have, and that's what the ACC. ACC Louisville has a defensive back that plays for the Arizona Cardinals, and everybody gets pumped up about that. The fact that the SEC has so many impactful players playing professional football, it just helps. It overruns the fact that the ACC is just trying to promote itself. And they're doing a decent job, but I would have to concur with Luke that it's not where it needs to be.
So I guess what is the answer to that? Having more national pundits just hoist up the league as its own, because you have a network that is dedicated to it. Obviously, Clemson is a brand. They're struggling. Florida State is, kicking and screaming, making their unhappiness known with the ACC,
Phil,
but they're ranked in the top two, essentially.
Keep winning and adding better players. And that's the formula. If you want to be relevant and you want to be talked about on all the other shows, all the other pundits, not as well done as we're doing.
Shout out.
But if you want to have that, that's what you do. You get better players, you keep winning.
Okay, well, you heard it there from the coach.
Winning is like deodorant, covers up all the stink.
It's like a stinky cologne.
Okay.
Well, that's desperation's like a stinky cologne. Yes. And trust me, there's a lot of teams out there that may be desperate. All right, switching it up. Sticking with football, I should say, but the big games this weekend. Lines provided by our good friends over at.
I mean, you've got every line you could possibly imagine. All kinds of you can do teasers, you can adjust lines, and we are so blessed to be partnered with.
All right, starting with Louisville, NC State. All right, so the line that I've seen is about 3.5 in the favor of Louisville tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, ESPN, full pre- and post game on ESPNLouisville.com, 93.9, the Ville, and
this is
the ESPN
where I'm
Louisville
hoping
app.
That Justin or maybe even James can insert the Princess Leia to Luke Skywalker on Bespin in The Empire Strikes Back. Luke, it's a trap. It's a trap.
Okay, so you think you're like an NC State here, or what do you?
I think it's going to be right down to it. I'd love to see Louisville win, and hope, if it's by a field goal, then it makes sense. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as people think. I think the total is 55.5, brought to you by our wonderful partners at. But I think the total is a little too high. I think NC State has a really good front seven. Louisville all week has been talking about the running game and defense. I think it's something in the lines of 27-24. Louisville.
Okay, so when we were doing our preseason walkthrough of the game by game.
By the way, I'm 1-1 because last year, which wasn't on the air, it's our test run, gave Oregon in the first half. But I digress.
Fighting Will Stein. Shout out. Did you see the nice little piece with him and Katie George? It was like the mom went into the time capsule shoebox and found them at like a Mr. Gaddy's or Discovery Zone picture of that. But no, I think with Louisville, this is the game that I marked as kind of where I would think that probably their first loss would be from, just because of what NC State has done in the past. Now, they haven't been impressive. They struggled in some of the Sister Mary of the Poor games in the beginning. They didn't even cover against. So I'm going to go with Louisville, but this is going to be a hostile environment. I'm kind of with you in the sense that I think that you're probably going to be looking at a 3-point win. So I would not touch it, or I'd buy the half point, thanks to our friends over at.
Our wonderful friends, our partners at.
All right. Next up.
By the way, you're carrying that microphone like so casually, like you're a talk show host. I'm like gripping this like my life depends on it.
The problem is last time I covered my face like I was in witness protection, or I was doing the everybody in the 313, put your MFN hands up and follow me, like I was, Cheddar Bob. And
when I watch the tape, because I watch lots of tape,
I have that,
especially on basketball, I'm gonna try and steal a few clues from you about how to handle that.
Trust me, we'll see when the footage comes out of that. Kentucky and Florida, the fighting Mark Stoops, is he going to waddle his way to a win over the top 25 Gators? I've seen some places that they are favored in that game. What do you think about that game?
Again, I'm going to go back to the total. I think it's somewhere hovering around 44 and a half. I see a low scoring first half where they're filling each other out. I think that game could end up 2017 along those lines.
3-1 Florida, 4-0 Kentucky, 12 o'clock ESPN. Kentucky is a 1-point favorite. Thanks to our friends over at
our wonderful friends and our partners at.
That's what we do here. All right, so he's taken I'm sorry, who did you take in that?
I just took the under.
Okay, you're not touching that.
Yes, I've got NC State to cover, Louisville to win. If you can take Louisville on the money line, the Louisville game and Kentucky to go under. Maybe it's a quick little parlay for you.
Okay, so any other college games, top 25 that are interesting you over the college landscape?
I'm sure everybody in this room is interested in what happens at noon with USC and Colorado, because it's must-see TV still, and how they respond. I love Deion's quote about if it was coaches versus coaches, everybody's out to get them. Like, he would kick everybody's ass because, he's a Hall of Fame player. But without Hunter and, we'll see. They're at home. Caleb
9
Williams
a.m. local start time.
Right. That's another factor. And we saw Freeman, the head coach for Notre Dame, talk about continuing night games, just like in every sport. It's a long day. Maybe this is something that's Colorado's advantage, that USC coming over and just not prepared for such an early start. Maybe they get off to a slow start. Maybe Colorado hangs around. In the famous words of KGB, hangs around.
Shout out to
Anybody get that reference?
No, I just nodded my head in agreement, and I just did that.
Rounders.
Oh, it's been so long since I've seen that movie. Come on.
If anything else, go check out Rounders after you watch our little show today.
ESPN Louisville Plus. Be sure to subscribe. All right, so with that game, did you see the comments that Dan Lanning made for Oregon after that in its full context? I was saying how great Deion Sanders was for the game. A lot of that didn't get a ton of publicity because it was the other stuff that was kind of circulating under the radar of him being a little bit more combative and whatnot.
Well, what's amazing is the whole week Oregon had film crews at every practice, at every film session, at every meeting. So, of course, they know the camera's on and so on. But, yeah, look, they're promoting it. I think you mentioned this to me. It's becoming more WWE-esque.
I love it.
Because that's what the game is now. You got different players coming in, and with the amount of social media for all these teams, it's great. It's great for the sport.
Did somebody pee on the O for the Colorado Buffaloes? Did I see that correctly? I think somebody was peeing on the O.
Anybody in our peanut gallery?
I mean, look, I could have gotten got by the internet. This happens a lot. That's why I put that out there. So that could.
Really?
Because remember, there was a whole thing with Matt Rule in Nebraska that they got upset that they disrespected them for stepping on the buffalo. And it's like, guys, they were praying. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, but it's okay to like hawk loogies.
I think that's something great for us to talk about in the next episode.
That's a teaser. So that's code for move the hell on, because they know. I know.
We've got our safe words and our code words.
All right.
Phil's a team player.
NFL games. All right. What's the game of the week in your eyes that you're liking?
Love to see Baltimore and Cleveland play this week. How about week 3? Baltimore has 7 starters out. It's week 3. Just shows you like football, man. It's the toll it takes on those players. We're talking about the 3rd week of the season. They had 7 starters out. I think Baltimore rebounds. I like Baltimore to win that game. I think they're getting a couple of points. I'll have to check that on our wonderful partners at
I am seeing for Baltimore. I'm sorry. I'm looking. I am not seeing this. It's here. I'm sure. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3
Are you on our partner site?
Yes, I am on there. I skimmed past the.
Because you might not be on our partner site, because if you were, it's so accessible.
No, it was me. It was operator error. Yes, it was perfectly. It was just right there. I missed it. The Browns still sometimes throws me off with that. It's their new logo that was on there that threw me off. Apologies. It's the little Keebler elf that they have at midfield. So that is a 3-point favorite for Cleveland. I don't know if you saw how the Ravens lost that game in overtime against the Colts. But Lamar Jackson.
4 50-yard field goals. Thought maybe with Justin Tucker they might try one of those.
I did too. So, I was shocked that they didn't go for that. So you don't want to touch the Broncos and Bears game?
Again, we'll talk about that. The war of futility next week on our show.
Pop culture time. Did you see Britney Spears having the knives and dancing in her little patio room or sunroom or whatever?
I did not. Yeah. Please enlighten me.
It was pretty terrifying. So she was just doing one of her, it wasn't sometimes 1999 Britney Spears in her all white where she was pure and innocent. This was terrifying. It looked like she was possessed. Really? Not that I say, was it the censorship that everyone was trying to get her on for?
Well, there's a new Exorcist movie coming out.
So maybe she was promoting that.
You a scary movie guy?
With Halloween coming up, I'll get into it. Yeah, I'll get into it. The Halloween movies that are on. I don't like the Saw movies with the gore where there's not really a plot to it. It's just as much gore, but I guess that's kind of all scary movies now.
Right.
What about you?
Nah, not my thing. Not at all? I don't want to be scared on purpose.
Halloween, I kind of get into the theme. I get into the ambiance. Like you watch the new Scream where it's like the Ghostface guy had like a shotgun this go around. I'm like, well, that's evolved since you just had a knife in the kitchen. Next up, what other pop culture tidbits do you have that you've seen from the week that it was?
Well, I'll tell you this. Here's our third teaser of the day. I will be bringing up my list of top shows, top movies, the ones that are kind of under the radar. We'll have that list for you next show. Excited to bring that to you as well.
Coach, any last thoughts?
Look, one thing we're bringing that other people aren't is we are going to break down SEC basketball, specifically Kentucky, ACC basketball, specifically Louisville. We'll touch on everything. We'll break down the film. We will show you. That's one of my favorite things to do, especially when I was coaching, is to show you specifically why something worked, why something didn't work throughout the game. And look, can't be anything better than that. We'll give such great insight to all our fans and listeners. Can't wait for that.
337 West Cardinal Boulevard, our ESPN Louisville Plus studios. If you want to help us doctor this up, trust me, we want it to be as cluttered as possible. So we have no problem. If you want to send us something, please, by all means. Thank you to our good friends over at Coors Light, Ross Kennedy, Body Armor, Matt Horlander. We got it all. If you want to bring some more swag down here, we will take it and run with it. For Coach Mark Lieberman, I'm Phil Baker. Till the next time, like, subscribe, and hit that fucking bell.